Good morning, and welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist of Chelmsford. We're a covenantal community gathered for worship, mutual care, faith formation, and in service to the common good. I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone visiting us for the first time this morning. We're so glad that you joined us today, and you can learn more about us or contact us via our website, uuchelmsford.org. I'm Reverend Ellen Spiro, and I'm leading worship this morning with our music director, Steve Zaki. Rick Warner will lead us in our chalice lighting and our covenant this morning, and we will hear from representatives of our music program. Our worship services are hybrid, with people attending in the sanctuary and from home. If you are attending from home, know that Aggie Brennan is our worship tech person, and Dave Caffeine is our online chat host. If you're in the sanctuary, Caroline Snow is our greeter this morning, and Leslie Yakos and Daniel Wright are our ushers. However you are joining us, we are so glad you are here from wherever you are. And I invite us to take a moment to say hello to each other here and there and everywhere, if you want to turn around and wave to those attending from home. We will have a social hour options online and in the vestry as well after the service. Today's online social hour will be hosted by Mary and Murphy, and we will provide the Zoom link at the end of the service. And the music committee is hosting a special social hour with cake that you can take outside to enjoy on this gorgeous day. Steve, please center us.
Well, that worked. Okay. Good morning. My name is Rick Warner, and I'm a member of the worship committee. I offered to do the chalice lighting this morning, and I'm also going to do the covenant in both English and Spanish. And where this is a Sunday in which we think about how grateful we are for the beautiful music that we have in this church and in our lives and the impact that it has on us. I just wanted to say a couple of things before I read something written specifically for the lighting of a chalice on Music Sunday. First of all, I'll just say that I'm not a musician. I don't have ability to play a musical instrument. I do like to sing. But I think about, on a Sunday like today, I think about my grandfather, who was trained as a classical musician since he was 5, until he became a young man, in which he had a big band back in the era of swing. And played all over the Northeast and New York. Had a 13-piece band. They traveled around in a 12-person car and a 2-seater roadster. And that's what my grandfather sat in. And my grandfather died when I was 5 years old, so I don't really remember much about him, although people tell me that for the first 5 years of my life, we were inseparable. That I used to sit on his piano stool with him, and he would play music for me. And I think I got that love of music, particularly the big band era music, the swing era music. And then my grandfather, after, as my grandmother said, he used to go down to New York and go into Harlem and play music and smoke marijuana. And then later in his life, he became the organist and choir director at the West Fifth Street Baptist Church in Lowell. And he did that for many, many years. So he had a wide range of music, and I think even though he's significantly younger than me, I think that Steve Zocchi was much like my grandfather was. A true talent and someone who loved music of all kinds. And that had a major impact on my life. And I do love classical music. And the second person that really brought that out in me was my mother-in-law, who has passed away, but that Garland's mom, who majored in music at Carnegie in Pittsburgh. And she was always very proud of when people would say, well, what was your instrument? And she said, my instrument is my voice. That was her instrument. She also played the piano and didn't brag about that, but was very good. And she got me into opera and classical music again, and so those connections. So they have had significant impact on my life, and I am very grateful for that. And on this Sunday in which we honor the music in our lives here at First Parish, I just can't help but hearken back to thinking about my grandfather, my mother-in-law, and all the people that I'm connected to because of that, and the impact that it had on my personal life. Even though I'm not a musician, and I'll leave you with one last thought on this. My mother-in-law, who I loved dearly, I was her primary caregiver the last few years of her life. She attended a concert in which I sang, and I sang a solo. And she came up to me after, and people were congratulating me and patting me on the back and saying, what a wonderful job you did. And my mother-in-law said to me, you understand that you're not a singer. I said, I'm not a singer? She said, no, you're a crooner. And that harkened me back to my grandfather and the big band, because they were all crooners at that time. So I took that as a backhanded, left-handed compliment, and we'll keep that with me. But we greatly appreciate the music that we have here, the wonderful choirs at First Parish, the wonderful music that we have from Steve, and we'll miss that certainly, and I know that whoever takes Steve's place will do a fantastic job, but I'm very grateful on this particular day, and I'm going to just share it's called a chalice lighting for Music Sunday, and it's I found it in the Unitarian Universalist handbook, I guess, by a writer by the name of Marnie Singer. The chalice is the container, the space where the musician and the listeners gather. The oil is the fuel, the hours of practice, and the life experiences of everyone in the room. The wick is the instruments and the vocal cords through which the music will flow. And the flame is the music which is created as if by magic when the instruments are lifted, the breath is inhaled, and the downbeat is nodded. May this flame ignite the music within us all. And now I just need to run back to the pew and get my bulletin so I can do it. and please read together with me in both English first and then in Spanish. We, the members of First Parish of Chelmsford, covenant together to sustain and strengthen our beloved community by honoring and celebrating the spirit of life, nurturing all souls in our search for truth and the sacred, caring and being present to one another in our joys and sorrows, bearing witness through service to justice and peace, and being good stewards of our congregation, our heritage, our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our earth. Nosotros, los miembros de la primera parroquia de Chelmsford, caminemos juntos a sostener y fortalecer nuestra amada comunidad en honorando y celebrando el espíritu de la vida, nutriendo todo almas en búsqueda de la verdad y la sagrado, cuidar y estar presentes al uno en otro en nuestras alegrías y tristezas, dar testimonio mediante servicio a la justicia y paz, y ser buenos cuidadores de nuestra congregación, nuestra herencia, nuestros principios unitarios, universalistas y la tierra.
Thank you, Rick. So on this gorgeous morning, I invite us to take time during the offertory music to consider our gratitude for the music in our lives. We will now gratefully receive the morning's offering in spirit for the life and work and ministry of our congregation. All right, Steve, get ready. We're going to sing your praises for a while here. Yeah. My dear Steve, we have truly been blessed to have you as our music director these past 8 years. Grief, joy, wonder, awe, righteous anger, trust in a love that abides in and transcends all life, that calls us into right relationship with one another and the creation. Words cannot begin to capture these things. You are a talented and skilled musician, but you also have that intuition for how music serves to express, nurture, and lift up the full life of the Spirit. And I have many examples that I could share from Christmas Eve and Easter, memorial services, preludes, postludes, and hymn renditions that had us rocking in our seats or quietly weeping, and a whole year of pandemic videos. But the one that is staying with me is your rendition of America the Beautiful last week, a heartfelt and mournful tribute to 19 children and 2 teachers. You captured in haunting chords that which words cannot bear. As I've said to you many times in recent weeks, leading worship with you has been a source of joy for me. Your willingness to adapt to on the fly when circumstances required it to offer music from every genre. And between your musical gifts and Dolores's creative and artistic spirituality, I have had that incredible worship team who can offer worship as the art that it should be, an experience that touches all our senses, that touches our hearts and minds and spirits, and accompanies us into the embrace of the sacred and the life-giving. You've helped all generations of this congregation grow in our souls. You have comforted us in times of loss, and you have given us voice for gratitude and praise. I know this decision was not easy, but I also know it is the right one for you and your family. And as Kermit the Frog / Bob Cratchit tells his family in A Muppet Christmas Carol, it's all right, children. Life is made up of meetings and partings. That is the way of it. So know it's all right. We'll take the gifts you have given us and build on them, and you go with our gratitude and our blessing. Don?
There's a bunch of us that are going to have something to say about Steve, so what she said. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Don Hayden. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here and just say a few words about Steve. First of all, a huge thank you to his wife, because Steve's lovely wife allowed him to share 8 years with us, and I'm sure she would rather have him be home chasing the 3 boys around the house instead of joining them in their frivolity. So let's get to Steve. He gives gifts, and the smallest gifts sometimes are the biggest. Here's one, just a name tag. It has my name, has a musical symbol on it, and it says bass. So he could figure out who we were. Well, we just had to remember one name when he was a newbie here. The other alternative to that would be maybe he really meant that to say bass, and I'm probably his largemouth bass. So, and he figured that out right away. My role here, I guess, is mostly the music committee besides being on the choir. I'm probably the longest and oldest current member. We spent a lot of time at the Java Room on monthly meetings there, and I don't know whether it's an honor or a privilege to receive this gift, but Steve got me hooked on bagels and peanut butter at the Java Room, and I thank you for that too, Steve. I thank you for that. His musical talents exceed and excel in both classical and jazz, as you well know. Competent artist, composer, and director. His love of people, the world, and his family shines through in everything he does. We are all honored and privileged to have him in our presence over these past 8 years. So, to you, Steve, your honor, love, ongoing presence, it will be sorely missed by all. To you, my friend, my best forever friend, smooth sailing in the future.
Now, from the most senior member of the music committee to the most recent, but unfortunately, I wish I was the youngest member of the music committee, but I'm the same vintage as Don. So, you know, people say when they find out how old I am, but you still have your hair. using that standard, then, Steve, I'm a lot younger than you. Anyway, it's a privilege and an honor to be here today, to honor Steve and the marvelous work he's done here. And Janice, who's been in the music committee longer than myself, would be too modest about this, but I think we should give her a round of applause, because, Steve, if it wasn't for Janice, you wouldn't have this gig. I'm serious. Your mother-in-law told Janice at one point, because they were good friends, that you were looking for another job. So Janice relayed the word to Ellen, and the rest is history. What a great job you've done. The choir, I remember, unfortunately the pandemic came through, but it's amazing what you did with the technology to bring us some choir renditions. I still have trouble getting on Zoom. And I have to teach on Zoom. And you think an oboe sounds bad if it's not played. Well, wait till you hear a kid play it on Zoom on one of those little microphones that are on the laptop. Well, that's just don't get me started. Okay. Well, anyway, but the work you did with the choir, I remember saying, you went into one of these competitions with the choir, because they did marvelous. And as a credit to you, the husband of our former music director stayed with the choir. That says something right there. Janice and I especially are going to miss the joint concerts we did to raise money for, like, the Veterans Shelter. We raised money for, in Harvard, there's this center for women who are recovering from cancer. And those are things that we'll miss a lot. And when they start up again, we expect to see an audience this size there. Okay? Fine. All right. But as I said, we're going to miss you, Steve. You've done a great job with your music. You have extraordinary talent, and we wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Hi, Steve. I'm speaking as a representative of the Bell Choir. So we would like to thank you for conducting Bell Choir for the past 8 years. When you came to First Parish, you brought a joy and a zest for making music together that made your music ministry very special. Bell Choir conducting was a new adventure for you, and you worked to learn all of its idiosyncrasies and challenges. We appreciate the time you spent on selecting pieces for Bell Choir and working with us to rehearse music for Sunday services. When COVID hit, you held Sunday night Zoom gatherings, so we still felt we were Bell Choir even though we couldn't rehearse. We wish you happiness and great success in your future endeavors. Thank you.
So, as parents of children who are in the choir, we wanted to share a few words. So this is on behalf of many appreciative parents and children. We're grateful that Steve was a part of this church for as long as he has been. He brought a sense of fun to the choirs while also teaching some serious music to our kids. Steve has always been passionate, fun, and energetic.
We appreciated the way Steve showed the kids that he truly enjoyed working with them, even when they were squirmy and silly. Steve has always been thoughtful, caring, and prepared.
We have all had some challenging circumstances over the past couple years, and Steve did a masterful job of transitioning to online choir practice. Steve showed flexibility and was able to adjust plans to capture our children's interests and ideas. Steve has always been flexible, enthusiastic, creative, and encouraging.
Bringing music into our lives, our living rooms, our cars, and our world has been such a gift, and we are grateful. Thank you for bringing your love of music and sharing it with our children. We wish you all the best, and we'll be sending positive thoughts out into the universe whenever we think of you, which, as Abby and Heather pointed out, will be at the very least every single time we hear Piano Man playing on the radio. We appreciate you so much, Steve. Thank you from all the families you have inspired with your passion, energy, and thoughtfulness.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Steve. Glad you could make it. I was recently met with what is, in my opinion, a somewhat Herculean task. I was to write a farewell for Steve in merely about 300 words. Now, I like to use a lot of words. In fact, I've already used at least 45 of them. But I'd like to dedicate the rest to my good mentor and compatriot with all required brevity. I properly met Steve when I was around 13 years old, around the same time that I joined the junior and intermediate choirs, because that was how I met him. It was a particularly formative period in my life, I think, both musically and vocally, and formative also to me was Steve and his choirs. The method by which he executed his rehearsals was such that myself, and I think many others who sang, felt there to be a certain potent connection with him. And I think that manifested itself in some very lovely performances, and also in a few misbehaviors during rehearsal, many of which committed by myself. As an educator, you get asked to do a lot of things, and especially, I think, as a music educator, you can be asked to do things that you don't feel like you can, right? And I think that Steve's willingness to take on complete directorship of several choirs as a pianist himself kind of speaks to the kind of educator he is. And I really think that the best among us, I think, learn to never back down from a challenge like Steve. I have been frequently intimidated by teaching vocals, mostly because I'm afraid of breaking something, right? You break a clarinet, it's fine. You break this, that's a little bit more serious. And so I really appreciate where Steve is coming from, not even as I'm an education major. Steve was a performance major, as I understand it. And I think that's really amazing that he could do that, and very, very commendable. So I'd like to thank you, Steve, for all the incredibly numerous things that you've done for all of us here throughout the years. Thank you.
Thank you for not mentioning all the stupid things I've done. Whew. I thought this was going to be a roast. Thank you for the 3 hours to speak. Thank you. I wrote things down because I'm nervous and scared and emotional. So I want to start with saying, I love you, First Parish, and you have been such a blessing to me. If I go like this, it's because I'm crying. I'm going to say some stuff you already know. First Parish is a very musical church, and the strength of the music program at First Parish comes from each of you. It has very little to do with who the music director is. The strength and health of the music program here comes from you, the members of the choirs, and those who encourage the choirs, the congregación, volunteers of all types that help sustain this place. If you volunteer here in any capacity, you're helping to sustain the music here. And don't think that you're not part of the music if you don't sing or play the instrument, or play an instrument. The symbiosis between performer and listener is crucial, especially in worship. I believe that for truly valuable music to be made, there must be people present who are participating only by taking it in. And I know from my own improvisation that how I play is totally affected by who's in the room. It's totally affected by who's listening or not listening. Being present affects the music. And I've said before that at some time in First Parish history, a musical critical mass was reached. And that is when enough musical people raise up quality music as an essential part of worship, it attracts more musical people with similar mindset. And a wonderful snowball effect occurs. And I think that's how a place like First Parish became literally a musical institution. People grow up in the choirs, they learn how to make music in a group. A church becomes a place of musical education, a vital one. And that's what happened at First Parish, I believe. And I believe that by the time I started working here, First Parish was, it kind of had a music conservatory feel to it. I know there was some intimidation even. Not with me, of course. But I know my predecessors were excellent, but they could not have been excellent just anywhere. The raw materials for excellent music making must have already been coalescing here. And so 8 years ago, I became the lucky musician to join this great music program as a participant in many ways. And now another very lucky person will get to serve this church. Circle of life. The music is so strong in this community that we survived COVID. We took a hit. When COVID arrived, the choirs had to move to online rehearsals and remote recording. That's the part that's going to make me cry. Some members did not take to this new and horrible way of making music, and I don't blame them. No one should blame themselves for bowing out for that first year or first couple years of the pandemic. But many people did participate vigorously. It's the dedication and the hard work of the volunteers at this church which allowed us to thrive. People gave me a lot of credit, but I was just one person sitting in a room with a computer. Everyone else was doing all the singing and playing and, oh, I lost my place. Hold on a second. Wait for it. Okay, so we thrived during the pandemic. And now, as we find ourselves ready for more in-person work, I think we'll find that the musical forces quickly regroup and begin to grow again. I mean, we're all used to seeing 20 people up here singing every Sunday, right? It's only 47 pages, don't worry. So, I am tapping out, as Tom Coffey put it, to spend more time with my family and reassess my career. But the energy here is growing. And I just want to take a minute to tell you how great you've made me feel. In a minute. All right. I fell in love with this place. My first day here. Our first date. I almost cried when we sang Fire of Commitment, because I had never heard a congregation sing with so much commitment. And I knew right away this was a great match for me. I found myself working with the best worship team ever assembled. You guys know how to hire staff. Those 6 years before the pandemic are etched upon my memory forever. Thank you, senior choir, for singing my silly songs that I wrote and for singing the not silly songs that I wrote. Thank you for singing the eulogy that I wrote for my brother. I can't tell you how much that meant. And thank you, bell choir, for tolerating me. I had no idea what I was doing, I can tell you now. I'm clueless conducting a bell choir, and your forbearance is duly noted. I should have mentioned that in the interview. And thank you to all the youth choir singers, all the kids. First Parish has the best kids. I want to give the kids a round of applause. It's really inspiring, and that's also a testimony to the parenting and to the culture here. And thank you to the music committee. Thank you to Alicia for chairing and to continue to chair that committee. I don't know if she's here today. Good. Oh, she is. Hi. I'll stop soon. We've created a lot of good music together, and we've laughed. This church has a sense of humor, and that goes a long way. Thank you, Reverend Ellen, for being funny. I mean, seriously. And Dolores and Cindy and Leela, you're hilarious. Those years working with you were a joy. Those staff meetings were just very funny. And thank you for letting me try to be funny sometimes. And for being really good at what you do while keeping a good sense of humor. That's hard. So I'll close by saying your next music director is going to feel the same way I felt on my first day. They're going to fall in love with this place. They're going to fall in love with you. And they're going to have the very fun and energizing privilege of getting people together to sing and ring in person. And once in-person rehearsal is more of an option, I believe the choirs will just reconvene and there will be that musical life again. You've survived, even thrived, during a worst-case scenario. And a new music director will be entering into an awesome situation here. They will feel warmly welcomed into this community, and I'm happy for them. Sad for me, but I'm happy for them. I love you. You've been a blessing. Thank you.
We're testing your cardio workout here. We're going to sing, of course. Number 29 in Singing the Living Tradition, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of
It is good to sing. It is good to sing. Now I invite us in to the other side of inviting the Spirit, a time of quiet and no words. I invite us to open our hearts to our source of being, whether we find this within us, among us, beyond us. Spirit of life and love, as we gather on this glorious, glorious morning. In a time of gratitude and farewells, lots of rites of passage happening around us, with graduations and movings on. I ask us to pause a moment to hold the joys and sorrows of our congregation. Carla Corey and Paul Buckley ask that we send healing thoughts to their brother-in-law, Leland. After being in remission for several years, he is experiencing a recurrence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Treatment has been delayed because he needs to have a heart valve replaced first, and he's starting to feel discouraged. Thank you. And I invite us now in the quiet to say aloud or silently to ourselves the names of anyone we are holding in our thoughts and prayers this day. Amen and blessed be. Let us join in our congregational response. Meditation on breathing. To send us on our way this morning, I have words by the poet Rumi, different than the ones I've been using recently. He writes, "Don't worry about saving these songs, and if one of our instruments breaks, it doesn't matter. We have fallen into a place where everything is music." May it be so.